So let me just say that as of the filming of this video, I have read both Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man to their latest chapters. And although JJK manga has ended, Chainsaw Man still hasn't. So, I will be including spoilers in this video, so if you don't want to see any spoilers, just don't watch the video, I guess. Some of the things that I want to add also here at the beginning of this video is that my JJK volume 24, Tankobon volume that is on order, as well as the Chainsaw Man Tankobon volume 17, so they will be soon in my collection. But they're just not here for me to include them in the video. Another thing that I will also be saying now at the beginning is that I will be giving a brief overrun of both mangas before I begin explaining the main character for each one of them. I will also be touching on the thematics and what each of the mangas explore individually, how their individual writers have written them, and the story around them. All of that said, let's begin. I'll start with Denji and the manga of which he is the protagonist of, Chainsaw Man. So Denji basically starts off in the story as a regular human. He has a pet devil called Pochita, that is the Chainsaw Devil, but he doesn't know that yet. And they're basically like amateur devil hunters working for the Yakuza. At one point he gets tricked by the Yakuza and killed, at which point him and Pochita merge into the Chainsaw Fiend. Not so long after that, they get recruited by the Public Devil Extermination Agency. It is at the agency that he meets up with his companions, as well as the main antagonist of this part of the manga, Makima, Aki, and Power. As the story goes, they get some bonding time together as they hunt devils. And those devils, by the way, are these creatures that come from the parallel... parallel? Is that how it's called? Parallel realm? Hell? I'm sorry, I can't pronounce some words right. So basically, devils come from hell. They are created from human fear of various things, and they crave human blood and flesh to consume. The more people fear something, the more that devil around which that fear is based will gain in power. And basically, as I continue to talk about Denji later on in this analysis, I will be explaining more about the devils. I just don't wanna prolong the introduction period now. Now, for some parts of the series, Denji is your typical anime and manga protagonist. He has spiky hair, he is flamboyant, he is eager to make friends and get with the girls despite not being so popular with the girls. But suppose you could say that the bane of Denji's existence are girls and women in general. Over the course of the series, he has made it his life's goal to get a girlfriend. And so far he has been mostly unsuccessful. But we'll see how the latest chapters turn out. And then there's Yuji and the manga of which he is the protagonist of, Jujutsu Kaisen. Yuji is in almost every way, if not, every way, your typical manga and anime protagonist, and I guess that you can tell by my voice that I'm not as excited talking about him as I am about Denji, or at least not as enthusiastic. Which is kind of ironic right now, but if you stick through to the video, you will eventually find out why. So, if you know your Jujutsu Kaisen lore, you know that Yuji Itadori starts off as a regular human whose grandpa dies and asks him at his deathbed to help as many people as he can, which he mostly unsuccessfully does throughout the series, but anyways. He eats the finger of the legendary King of Curses, Ryomen Sukuna. He then gets recruited and joins Jujutsu High, or starts attending it because it's a school technically. At Jujutsu High, he teams up with the three people that are going to be mostly relevant throughout the story, being Megumi, Nobara, and of course, the one and only My lack of enthusiasm around Satoru Gojo doesn't come from his character design or from anything that's story related in any way. It's mostly in regards to the, let's say, fan base that this character has created, and the, if you can call them, memes and online posts that are themed after him or for him or about him. Why does this exist? Now, in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, there exist these creatures called curses. They are formed from human emotions, negative human emotions that is, and just as with the devils, I will be talking more about them and mentioning more of them as this video continues. The only thing that you need to know about them for now is that there are different grades of them, there are different types of curses, and that just like sorcerers, curses can likewise utilize cursed techniques. Also, as a quick side note, I have debated whether or not I mention Yuta either now or somewhere down as the video progresses, but no, I've decided against it since it's about Yuji and Denji, and Yuta is not a main character. I mean, I will be mentioning him, but I won't be spending too much time on him, if you get what I'm trying to say. I suppose another thing that should be mentioned now at the introduction phase of these two mangas, and I suppose somewhat of a comparison of them, is that unlike in Chainsaw Man, where the existence of devils is not a secret and is a fact of everyday life, curses from Jujutsu Kaisen are not only a secret, but they are also mostly limited to Japan. Jujutsu as a concept is mostly limited to Japan. Sorcerers, as we find out in chapter 136, volume 16, for those of you that track it differently, sorcerers and Jujutsu as a whole is mostly a Japan-centric phenomena. Actually, you know what? Why shouldn't I start comparing the mangas as a whole, as opposed to just the characters? At least in this part. Let me delve into this a bit more. What else do we have? We have the, as far as Chainsaw Man goes, the Public Devil Extermination Agency, and then for Jujutsu Kaisen we have the, I think it's called Jujutsu Ministry, though I've only heard and read the characters in Jujutsu Kaisen refer to it as the Jujutsu headquarters. So in both of their respective mangas, both of these agencies exist and operate under the Japanese government, except that it, as far as it has been revealed in Chainsaw Man, it seems like the Japanese Prime Minister is the one who is in charge, or at least the one who is giving sort of the final order as far as the Public Level Extermination Agency goes, as opposed to the Jujutsu Kaisen, where there exists a certain Jujutsu Inspector General who is appointed by the, I guess, recommendation of the three major clans or something. Now that I think about it, as part of Volume 22, in Tankobon, Volume 22 of Jujutsu Kaisen, at the end of it, there exists a couple of pages that are sort of dedicated to this explanation of I guess, the founding rules, the founding principles of Jujutsu Society, modern day Jujutsu Society that is, that operates in this modern world under the Jujutsu headquarters. It's a quick description of the 9 basic rules that all Jujutsu sorcerers must live by. Another interesting way to compare these two mangas is also the power system by which the characters operate within them. Like I already mentioned, that in Jujutsu Kaisen there exist different grades for different curses and sorcerers. When it comes to Chainsaw Man, that's a bit different. That is to say that there doesn't really exist a ranking, or it just hasn't been given yet, and they mostly seem to send whichever number of devil hunters they think is required to take a certain devil based on how how feared that devil is, or I guess their perception of the fear of that devil, their assessment of how many people actually fear that devil. Whereas in Jujutsu Kaisen, if a curse is asserted to be at a grade 1, let's say, then a grade 1 sorcerer would be sent with the assumption that that grade 1 sorcerer has the ability to defeat a grade 1 curse, as stated in the volume number 1. It should also be mentioned that oftentimes grades of different curses aren't actually stated, or even within the manga there has been several cases where I guess sorcerers have been sent on missions and they messed up the grade of the curse, or their assessment of how strong that curse is had been wrong, and sorcerers suffered from it, to say the least. Okay, without further ado, let me start talking about characters before I lose any more of you. But yeah, I will be mentioning more about curses, devils, curse energy, and all those things that I just mentioned before, power levels and whatnot, while I'm talking about Denji and Yuji. So yeah, here we go. Okay, so I have talked about both of them looking like typical manga and anime protagonists, but what about their mentality? Now, that's an interesting way to look at them because they're different in different ways. Wow. Intellectual words right there. Michelangelo, Einstein, something, I don't know. I'm not the smartest person. As you can tell, my vocabulary is almost infinite and my pronunciation of these foreign words is truly impeccable.
So yeah, I like FPSs. What can I say? There's nothing like the rush of hunting people down and killing them. I mean, my heart's beating, my hands are shaking, but I'm still shooting, and I'm still getting the headshots. It's like boom, headshot, boom, headshot, boom, headshot.
I guess you can say for both of them that their personalities are to a great extent shaped by their loneliness. I mean, both of them start out without parents, their friend groups are arguably limited, well, at least for Denji they are. Though at the same time, I would argue that it's because of that loneliness that that both of them seem eager to reach out to the world and see what's out there, even if it bites them. Which sometimes it quite literally does, but that's besides the point. What is in the point, however, is how they choose to deal with the outside world when it bites them back. When it comes to Denji, he mostly doesn't seem to care. I don't know if he consciously doesn't care or if he's just kinda, too dumb and dense to realize what's going on around him. It hasn't really yet been explained all that much. I mean, it has been alluded that he both doesn't care and that he's kind of dumb and gullible, but still, I'd want that explained a bit more. But when it comes to Yuji, even when the outside world bites him back, for the most part, he seems to forgive it. He just seems to see the best in everyone and everything. I guess it is the curse from his grandfather to always help and save everyone, which sometimes bites him back. Pun intended. Well, it's not really a pun. Who cares? And I don't know about you, but for me personally, that's kind of annoying. Yeah, it kind of is. It just seems to completely overlook the natural human reaction and emotion to something presenting either a danger to you or doing you wrong and you choosing to ignore it. I mean, don't get me wrong, human morality, whether through religion or through our everyday lives, teaches us to, forgive everyone, flowers and rainbows and shit like that, but nah, most humans do not react that way. Just try to remember the last time you got into an argument with someone and that argument turned particularly Brah!
Particularly.
Nasty, and you held a grudge against that person for who knows how much time until you either just decided not to care or I guess forgave him. It also goes against my own, I guess, our collective, or for the most people, collective westernized view on freedom and stuff. I mean, this guy's grandpa basically told him, go out of your own way to sacrifice yourself or whoever needs help just because I myself was lonely, even though you yourself may not really care if you're lonely or not. And that's also another thing. I have not yet read or heard from Yuji say anything about how he feels about himself being a bit of a loner and whatnot, even though he spouted his grandpa's words. It just doesn't it's basically repeating what his grandfather told him. It just doesn't seem like something that he himself came up with. It just seems like we're supposed to go along with it because, you know, Yuji is the good guy, he is the protagonist. There's something there that lacks for me. Like, I don't want anyone to misunderstand me here. I'm not trying to say that you should not help others when they're in need and stuff, or to always do what's morally right. I'm saying that Yuji as a teenager, as a young man, is arguably more inclined to disagree with his elders on every matter as an adolescent. It doesn't matter if it's morally right or wrong. There's arguably more proof of teenagers going against their elders' wishes and desires for them, even if they are in the best of thought, you know, for their future and whatnot, just because, you know, they want to be independent and stuff. It is intrinsic for teenagers and young people to want to do things differently as opposed to their elders, at least for that period of their life. I just don't want to act like, you know, rebellious teens don't exist, and why should Yuji be any different, even though he is a main character? Like, for example, if you look at Denji on the other side, he kind of does everything that he is told because they treat him right. Like, he is a hedonist, and I'll be getting to that more, but I just want to compare him now to Yuji. Like, Yuji does things because his grandpa told him, because moral compass or whatnot. Compass, yeah, I pronounced that right, I think I said it right. Denji, on the other hand, just wants to be taken care of for the most part. I don't know how that is going to turn out in these last few chapters going forward, but yeah, he's pretty content with being fed and taken care of and pampered and whatnot. Shown physical love and affection as opposed to any kind of deeper connection, which, if you kind of look around yourself these days, most people are like that. They want to be praised, they want to be loved at every turn in their life. I mean, just look at Drake.
This is my alter ego. Anita Maxwin. Anita Maxwin. Anita Maxwin. Anita Maxwin. W's in the hat.
Yo, call declined. Embarrassing. Embarrassing.
You want $25,000.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Yes. Anxiety.
No wonder this guy lost the rap beef. No fucking wonder. Now, if we were to go a bit more down that line of, you know, their inner self, I guess we would arrive eventually at the point of talking about what both of them hide inside. Specifically, what beings they hide inside. Because, in a way, both Sukuna and Pochita are different, and yet they're not. They may as well be the same fucking person, because, I mean, it's not just the physical. Am I the only one who's seeing it? It's also the way that they behave when they're their true self. So let me start with Pochita. I mean, yeah, you all know the lore that Denji and Pochita, you know, helped each other out and through the story, whatnot, Denji becomes the vessel of Pochita, or rather, they combine and Denji becomes the fiend, the chainsaw fiend. But long story short, Denji and Pochita are in sync. Pretty much everything that the two of them do, they do together. Not that they have a choice, but still, they agree on things. They align on, I guess, most points of morality, if you wanna, if I could say it that way. I don't know, my vocabulary is fucked up. Like after how many chapters of Denji and Pochita being in the same body, like, what's your perception of them? Because I would bet that your perception of them, or at least Pochita in this case, since we're talking about him here, that it's mostly positive. I mean, for one, he's cute as fuck when he isn't in that full chainsaw form. My friend even has a little Pochita plushie, which is cute as fuck. I wish I could bring it here, but I forgot to ask him. Also, speaking of that full chainsaw form, yeah, keep it in mind. And on the other side is Ryomen Sukuna, and, well, Yuji. Mostly Ryomen Sukuna, since I want to talk about him here now. His relationship with Yuji compared to Pochita and Denji is completely fucking different. There is damn near no comparison when it comes to the story, like when their thoughts are aligned or something. That's just non-existent here. Sukuna outright hates Yuji. If you've read up to the final chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, you know, like, there's no fucking way these two were ever gonna shake hands and shit. I think another way that you can also look at Sukuna and Pochita, well, at least Sukuna, is that when it comes to villains, or him rather being a villain, his introduction is done by other people.
Ryomen Sukuna is an imaginary fierce god with 4 arms and 2 faces. But he once existed as an actual human being, although it was over 1,000 years ago. In the golden age of Jujutsu, sorcerers gathered all their might to challenge him, and failed. Crowned with the title of Sukuna, we couldn't even destroy his grave wax as he traversed the ages after death as a cursed object. Without a doubt, he is the king of curses.
It basically, to me, that puts him in that hall of fame of villains. Like, the proper way to introduce a villain to your story is have other people basically describe him to you. Like, I have not once heard Sukuna introduce himself as, like, "Hi, I'm Ryomen Sukuna," or something along those lines. Not that he would say hi, but whatever. Like, all the great villains have been basically introduced by others. Like, remember Madara in his first appearance.
Wait, what is that?
What's the matter? What are you sensing?
It's right over there!
1 second!
What is it?
I suddenly sense a new enemy near Gaara's 4th company.
What now?
Although each one only has half his normal strength.
No, I don't mean him. Someone else is here!
There's another one?
That one is... That is Madara Uchiha.
So that's what he looks like beneath his mask, huh?
But he looks exactly the same as he did before.
HQ reported Madara elsewhere, approaching in the other direction with a bunch of Jinchuriki. Isn't that correct?
The reanimation jutsu brings the dead back to this realm.
Actually, let's do some more comparisons. Like, if I would have to compare, you know, Denji and Yuji to other anime protagonists, I would compare Denji to Naruto, obvious reasons, and I would compare Yuji to Ichigo. You know, when it comes to Denji and Naruto, both of them serve as a vessel for a immense force of destruction, let's say it that way, but, you know, if you watch Naruto, you know that Kurama, I forgot what his fucking name was. It's been a while since I watched Naruto, I gotta rewatch it. You know that he's been almost like a tortured animal. And you know, over the course of the series, he eventually warms up to Naruto, or Naruto warms up to him. I mean, that doesn't happen with Denji and Pochita. They basically click it off right from the start. But still, that's the closest that I would compare them to. Like, that's the one that comes to mind if I would have to compare, since I'm comparing them with other anime protagonists. And the reason I would compare Yuji to Ichigo is, I mean, yeah, if you know the lore of Bleach, you know Ichigo's backstory and what's inside of him. And no, I'm not just talking about Ichigo. There is that other guy. Actually, hold on a second. Now that I'm rethinking about, you know, Denji, Naruto, Pochita, and Kurama, both Kurama and Pochita are kind of orange, and there is at least one scene in which Kurama is, let's say, plushier. Where was I going? Alright, Ichigo and Yuji. Comparing the two of them isn't also, I think, fair, because I think that Ichigo is at least twice as much better written character than Yuji. Not just because of, if you can say, his powers and whatnot, but because of why he does what he does as opposed to Yuji. Like, remember when I said that Yuji basically does what his grandpa told him to do? Ichigo, on the other hand, does what he wants. Like, he has both the physical power and the freedom, like the mental freedom, to just do whatever the fuck he wants. And not just from, I don't want to take away from his morality. Obviously, he is morally good. Like, his compass points in the right direction. That said, like, what Ichigo is fighting for, as opposed to Yuji, kind of affects everyone. Like, if you compare Sukuna to Yuhabaha, Yuhabaha is the bigger threat, not just because he's stronger and because the power scales are on a much greater scale, but because, you know, Ichigo is basically fighting to at the very least, keep the ground beneath his fucking feet stay where it is. In worst case scenario, on the other hand, if Sukuna goes on a rampage, he's gonna try to kill every human in the world. That's probably not gonna go well because there's too many fucking people, but still, it's not like he can erase a planet. That's just not happening. Like, if we zoom out on the story of Jujutsu Kaisen and look at it from the perspective of someone who, let's say, doesn't live in Japan, in world of Jujutsu Kaisen, they, I guess, mostly, and it's not that they wouldn't care, but still, there is a allure of safety as far as I see it, as far as I would care if I was alive in that world, at the risk of sounding like somebody with an 8th grader syndrome. See, that's another way that you can compare these two guys, Yuji and Denji, is that I guess even I made a mistake here. Like, Denji is, in a way, almost as equally comparable to Ichigo as Yuji is. And I'm not saying that Ichigo is a perfect character, by no means he isn't. I do hope to one day in the future delve into Bleach and him as well, but, like, what they're fighting for, Ichigo and Denji, kind of affects everyone. So if you, like, really sink into the story as you read it or as you watch the anime, you become more invested in it, because it's not just affecting one part of the world or a certain amount of people. No, this affects pretty much everybody. Like, if you've read the last few chapters of Chainsaw Man, well, not just the last few chapters, but let's say last 20, a little more than last few, I know, but, like, if you've read them, you would know the upcoming threat that the world faces, the world of Chainsaw Man. In a weird way, Sukuna is more similar to Denji, and Pochita is a little bit more similar to Itadori. I wanna say that my goal isn't necessarily to become a video essayist, but I do wanna be a little bit self-conscious and apologize for constantly making this noise because I'm kind of stuck on, let's say, a certain thought and I kind of lag out. I am new to this. Give me some credit. But yeah, my bad. I'll try to be better. I do want to remind everyone that there exists a very nice big and red subscribe button, as well as a very nicely thumb-like shaped like button that I would like you to press. Both of them preferably. Okay, another way that I would also like to compare these two characters is by looking at the writers or authors of their individual respective mangas. In one corner, you have Tatsuki Fujimoto, the writer of Chainsaw Man, as well as Fire Punch, which is my favorite manga from him. And in the other corner, you have Gege Akutami, the part-time mangaka, part-time moron, as well as the author of Jujutsu Kaisen. Let me start with Tatsuki Fujimoto. I'll deal with the other idiot later. So Tatsuki Fujimoto has so far had only 2 serialized mangas, but both of those mangas are, if you ask me, fucking bangers. But on the other hand, he has had a lot more one-shot mangas in such magazines as the Shonen Jump. Some people may refer to Denji as weird. And you can most certainly see some of that, let's call it weirdness, around Tatsuki Fujimoto and that he really generates translate into his characters and the stories and the plot points in those stories and how characters interact in between each other. So the more you dig about him, the more you come to understand his characters, which is, if I would have to look back at different mangas and different manga artists, different mangakas, you can sort of see this trend where they put and project some of themselves, some parts of themselves, although not vast majority of it. For the vast majority, they create original stories. But there are certain things here and there that, if you pay close attention, you can sort of see and piece together a picture of who they are and what they concern themselves with, which I kind of find interesting. It would not be wrong to say that Tatsuki Fujimoto himself has also drawn some inspiration from Bleach, much like Gege, specifically when it comes to the beings that each of the protagonists and other human or more human-looking characters are fighting. Specifically, I'm talking about devils and hollows. Given that, in this case, unlike when it comes to Jujutsu Kaisen, where, curses are spawned in the same world as the humans, hollows and devils both spawn in their own worlds. I do know that in Chainsaw Man there has been no mention of these devils having any kind of reproductive ability. Now that I think about it, neither have hollows in Bleach. But I am sort of interested when it comes to the phenomena of a fiend, because they do possess human corpses, which once possessed come back to life, but not as the same person as before. Yeah, see, now that I think about it, that whole concept of a soul also spills into both Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man. Dude, Gege and fucking Fujimoto have been just copying everything that Tite Kubo does. How the fuck did he not copy Strike them both? Now that I think about it, there's just so much internal dialogue. I mean, internal dialogue is not a new phenomena. You've seen it in both Bleach and Naruto and what other animes and mangas are there? Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm sure there's more, I just can't remember right now. Also, now that I have mentioned reproductive ability, there is some mention of that in Jujutsu Kaisen when it comes to curses, so there you have it. Calling Fujimoto an eccentric is an understatement, okay? If you do a little bit of digging online about him, you're gonna find some things that you probably weren't bargaining for. The most infamous story about Tatsuki Fujimoto is perhaps the story that was in the author's comments of one of his works that, you know, talked about him eating a fish, a dead fish, a dead pet fish that he previously tried to feed to the ants. Because that's what you do with your dead pets. Tatsuki Fujimoto is a weird guy, okay? And now the person I don't want to get to, but have to, Gege Akutami. I think that the first thing that should be mentioned is that Gege and Fujimoto are actually friends. I don't know if they know each other in person, but I do know that they have spoken, whether that be online or over the phone. I just know that they made contact with each other. Gege Akutami has experimented with these ideas that you see in Jujutsu Kaisen before in some of his previous works, but they all came to fruition in Jujutsu Kaisen once that was serialized. I do think that it is fitting that I have mentioned that Yuji is somewhat comparable to Ichigo, right, because Gege has on numerous occasions stated that he is inspired by Tite Kubo's work and Bleach. Tite Kubo, of course, isn't the only person that has influenced his work. A lot of mangakas, when they're young, read plenty of mangas, of course. I mean, that's basically how they get introduced to the craft. They see something and want to replicate it in their own way. But whereas Tatsuki Fujimoto has drawn inspirations not just from mangas, I don't know if Gege has drawn inspiration from something other. Tatsuki Fujimoto has said that some Korean movies have inspired him, while on Gege Akutami's side it's mostly mangas. Now that isn't anything weird in on itself. Prior to, you know, finally starting the work on Jujutsu Kaisen, Gege has worked as I think assistant mangaka or assistant manga editor, as opposed to Tatsuki Fujimoto, who, if you go on his Wikipedia page and if you read, he pretty much, after graduating university, sort of just, I guess, immediately started submitting different, what do you call them, pilot mangas, test drawings, test sketches, I don't know what they're called, I'm not in the industry. He basically took a different approach as opposed to Gege, who first got contacts in the industry, worked in the industry, I guess practiced behind the scenes, and then got into publishing, you know, mangas and whatnot. Not to say that Gege doesn't have one-shots, he does. Before going on to work with Jujutsu Kaisen, he has published some one-shots, but none at the quality of Tatsuki Fujimoto's. I do want to give some props to Gege. I mean, he does make his author's commentary within his work kind of funny. Like, if you have your Jujutsu Kaisen tankobon volumes like I have here, if you start listing through them, you see that he has some fun sketches and whatnot, some explanations on how he got to, you know, drawing or talking about a certain concept within his manga. It's interesting, it's kind of fun, but I mean, if we were to start getting technical and whatnot, he kind of lacks there. Yeah, as I mentioned before, it will surprise you in a little why I'm so critical of Gege, but you'll understand. The way that he lacks when it comes to the technical manga work, the drawings, the dialogue, the characters and whatnot, the best way is to just look at the transition from manga to anime. It's an understatement to say that the animation studio has done wonders to improve upon what Gege has done in his manga. I mean, this man owes them so fucking much. As opposed to Tatsuki Fujimoto, who within his mangas basically describes all the story, and more, shall I say, most of the story, and then the animation studio has quite a bit of base material to work on. Gege, on the other hand, basically drew his manga with the intention of sending it to the studio and letting them figure out how to connect certain things and whatnot. I mean, like, the best way to look at it, I think, would be volume 14 of Jujutsu Kaisen, Tankobon volume 14, where Sukuna is done fighting Jogo, Megumi summons Mahoraga, Sukuna notices that and basically comes to fight him. That fight within the manga lasts a few pages, but if you look at the anime, they basically gave it a full fucking episode. And I'm not complaining, that's probably the best episode of season 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen. And you can tell that the animators, well, I wish I could say they got paid. You do know that some behind the scenes stuff that's going on in Mappa Studio and whatnot, but I'm so glad that once the series season 2 has finished airing, they went back to the studio to further work on that episode and released it through Blu-ray, I think. It, to this day, is the highest rated episode, I think, of Jujutsu Kaisen, or at the very least one of them. But looking beyond just this relationship in between, you know, his drawing and storytelling abilities and studio adaptations, like if I were to focus just on that storytelling ability and zoom in on the characters, the side characters, well, he does a good job of expanding on some of them. Some of the other characters are just left for shit. I think that the most blatant and the worst example of Gege's unwillingness to work around other characters and dig deeper into their past, their personalities, their relationships with other people, other sorcerers, is Kashimo Hajime. Yo, man, he did this guy so fucking dirty in the manga. I just hope that at least the studio gives this more attention when the time comes to animate this. He is, I think, in the top 3 coolest characters of the manga. And as a writer, I think that he is inferior to Tatsuki Fujimoto, whether that be because he is less experienced or less talented. I don't know, it's just, Fujimoto is just better there. I think to draw a conclusion on this comparison escapade, I should just come out and say, yeah, Denji is a better character than Yuji Tadori. Chainsaw Man arguably is a better manga, and probably an anime therefore, than Jujutsu Kaisen. And yet, Jujutsu Kaisen is my favorite manga. I know, I am a hypocrite, I know. In fact, my favorite character from Jujutsu Kaisen is Sukuna. As great of a character as Denji is, as much more relatable as he is than Yuji, Jujutsu Kaisen, to me, it draws me in a way that no other manga has so far. I remember spending every fucking night just waiting every Tuesday or Friday, whenever it was that Jujutsu Kaisen leaks were being released online, just so I could look at them and peek into the future that was to come as far as that manga goes. I have even bought the Jujutsu Kaisen 10 Shadows Twin Dogs plushies. Don't ask about that. The point being that no matter how much I shit on Gege and his storytelling ability, as inferior as Jujutsu Kaisen as a manga is to Fire Punch or Chainsaw Man or Bleach, I still like it. I still like it more. I don't know why. I legitimately cannot tell you why. I am just so deep into the story, so infatuated with a couple of characters, mostly with Sukuna though, that I'm biting my fingernails right now, anxiously waiting on season 3 to like be given an official release date. Oh well, I'd say that's about it. That's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. There you have it. Denji is better, but I like Jujutsu Kaisen more. Well, let me know in the comments how you feel about it. I know that this is a very, very, very imperfect video. Cut me some slack. I did begin doing this like a few months ago. And as always, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in some other video. Bye!